A very good morning to you and welcome to the show. This is Full Circle with Joyce and my name is Joyce Wahiga. Karibuni sana to the show. It is Thursday. Maze, April is next week, you guys. Is anybody else as shocked about that as I am? I can't believe how quickly this year is going by. But today on Full Circle, we want to talk about family and parenting. And today on the show specifically, we want to ask, would your child list you among their models or mentors when it comes to your money habits? You know, some of you guys are just, unfortunately, we cannot say you're the greatest examples for your children when it comes to money. We're going to have an expert in studio talking to us today. He has lots of nuggets to share with us. And in addition, we're also going to be talking about safety rules and first aid at home. This is so critical for all of us. Maybe you have a nanny or a house manager who takes care of your kids while you're away at work, or even just yourself. Do you know what to do in case of an emergency? Just the little basics. We want to inform and educate you guys on that today. But as always, I have an inspirational word for you today. And this says, the way we talk to our children becomes their inner voice. And I think that's so profound on so many different levels, not just financially, as we're going to talk about in just a bit, but even spiritually. What is it that you're telling your children, you know, that is informing their inner voice for the future? What is it that you're telling them socially? What is it that you're telling them emotionally? You know, some parents have a habit of really insulting their kids and calling them names as they're trying to correct them, but those things stick with your children. And so I hope this challenges you today. That quote is by Peggy O'Mara, that the way we talk to our children becomes their inner voice. So tafakari hayo even as we get started with the show. And kicking us off, we have Danny Goki with the song New Day. This is Full Circle with Joyce. Karibu sana to the show.
Wake up and breathe in deeper than yesterday. Take on the morning like your soul's been remade. Roll down the windows, let your cares fly away. Good things are yours to claim, you don't have to wait. All across the sky, new mercies rise, and the future's bright. This is a new day. Everything bursting with hope, coming alive. This moment, you gotta freedom. No looking back anymore. Open your eyes, it's coming. This is a new day. The old is gone away, This is a new day. Don't let it slip away, Go on and reignite impossible dreams. Become the one you never thought you could be. All across the sky, new mercies rise, and the future's bright. This is a new day. Everything bursting with hope, coming alive. This moment, you gotta freedom. No looking back anymore. Open your eyes, it's coming. This is a new day. The old is gone away, This is a new day. Don't let it slip away, This is a new day. The old is gone away, This is a new day. Don't let it slip away, Love hasn't given up on you. Love hasn't given up on you. Love is making the old things new today and every single day. Love hasn't given up on you. Love hasn't given up on you. Love, yeah. 1, 2, 3. New day. This is a new day. Everything bursting with hope, coming alive. This moment, you gotta freedom. No looking back, open your eyes.
Right, guys, karibuni sana to the show again. This is Full Circle with Joyce, with me, Joyce Omondi Wahiga. I hope you're well this morning and that you enjoyed that song, Danny Goki. They're kicking off our morning with the song New Day. As I did mention, today we want to talk about whether your children would actually consider or list you as their mentors or their role models when it comes to money. It's such a big topic, so many of us don't even talk about it. Actually, just on Morning Live, they were talking about a will and preparing, a will. Do your kids even have that understanding? Very important topics today. And joining me in studio, I have a very special guest. His name is Waithaka Gatumia, and he's the CEO of Centonomy. What an honor it is to have you here in studio.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
Do you like our place?
It's wonderful.
Yeah?
Even the last time I was here, it looks quite different now.
Yeah.
So you guys have done a really great job.
Good. All right. So lots of people haven't actually spoken to their children about money. We'll talk to them about good grades. We'll talk to them about not playing with neighbor nanny's child. But then when it comes to actually talking about money, few parents have actually had that conversation.
Yeah.
You seem to propose that you should be having that conversation. Why is that?
I think so. I think it should be a purposeful conversation. I think we do talk to our kids about money, we just don't know about it. And we talk to our kids about money kind of, how would I say, inadvertently. We are speaking to one another and we come home and we say, oh, things are thick. When we're out with our friends, we're out there talking and we're saying, oh, life is so hard, there's no money. When they do ask us, our kids, for instance, ask us, can we have this or that? And we say there's no money. So we're actually talking to them about it. It's just we're not aware, self-aware about it. And so at Centonomy, we have always been focused on trying to help people take control of their finances, to get some kind of control around the wealth creation journey that they want to have. And so in order to do that, you have to be purposeful about what you do. Right. So for instance, when we're training adults, we usually tell them, please watch your mouth, watch what you say, because what you say actually happens. If you continuously say you're broke, you will be broke.
Power of life and death
that's,
is in the tongue.
That's what it is. So if you continuously speak these things, then your mind also begins to get used to it. So even if you do have more money, you still feel like you're broke. Right. And the same effect you can imagine is on your children. When we're speaking, they're hearing. And not only when we speak, but when we act. So one of the things that's so important is your children watch every single thing you do.
True.
We were laughing with my wife a couple of weeks ago because every night we pray with our children. And the youngest is 2 years old. And so we're teaching her how to pray. And we asked her, would you like to pray? And she started praying, and she prayed exactly like my wife. As you know, every single nuance, even she was smacking her tongue just like my wife did. And it was so funny because we had never shown her that, but she's been listening for the last 2 years to how we do it. And so it's exactly the same when it comes to your financial awareness and your financial patterns. Your children are watching you. And you tend to see this in families. You see that wealthy families tend to get wealthier because the children see and participate in that whole wealth creation journey.
Right. And that's actually I studied economics, and that's actually one thing that comes up even as you study that discipline, that poor families, unfortunately, their children sort of end up in that cycle. But, wealthier families, because of what they're teaching their children, they get their children involved in business earlier.
That's right.
That actually makes quite a big difference. There's two things that you've talked about, patterns and awareness. Maybe you can break those down for us, especially in as far as now conversations with our children. So let's start with patterns.
So patterns, it's exactly what it is. What you do. We have a pattern for everything. When you wake up, you have a pattern for what you do. You go brush your teeth first, maybe, or other people go have breakfast first and brush your teeth. There's a pattern, and your children learn those patterns. They watch you. So let's talk about a financial pattern, one that most people will be able to probably understand, our shopping patterns. If you've ever gone shopping with your children, you know it's quite an experience. And so let's not talk about the other side of it, but the idea is they watch what you're doing. And if you go to a supermarket, for instance, and you don't have a shopping list, and you just kind of walk around and, oh, that's nice, and you put it in the basket, oh, that's nice. And so they ask you for something, and you say, okay, and let's put it in the basket. We're showing children that there's no control in that same space. And parents are always wondering, how do I teach my children to budget? Maybe your budget is in your head, but your children don't see what's in your head. They see what you're doing. And many times, even those of us who say that your budget is in your head, you've picked some things that were not on the list. So children learn that process. So one of the things we're teaching parents to begin to do is involve your children in the planning. So when you're at home and you're putting together your shopping list, we need milk, we need whatever, and we're going with the kids, ask them, what would you like when we get to the shop? And they'll tell you many different things. Ice cream, lollipops, whatever it is. And then tell them, no, we can't have everything, but you can have maybe one thing if you can afford it, right? And then say, fine, great, lollipop. So you're going to have a lollipop. In fact, you write it down on the list and say, great, that's you, lollipop. You'll have an ice cream, you'll have a chocolate, or whatever it is that you're going to do. When you get to the supermarket, the control is so much easier. Right. Because when they get there, you keep on reinforcing, what are you getting? A lollipop. What are you getting? Chocolate. What are you getting? When they get into that, they're making a beeline for that very thing that they wanted to get. Yeah. And it becomes such a, and you bring it, and they bring it to you, and you tick it off the list and say, now we've gotten it. The focus is on one thing rather than another. Right. And that's one of the kind of things that some of the things that you can begin to do as far as patterns are concerned.
Another big pattern, though, and I have to ask you about this, is because I'm sure you're teaching the adults. Yes. Mobile money and how easy access to credit has become, in a sense. Yeah. And also sports betting, because there's a lot of questions about that, and kids. I think there are kids nowadays who just know. Because back then, before mobile money came about, when you'd go shopping somewhere, and then you say, sina pesa, they're like, kuna mobile money, uneza vuta kwa simu.
Yes, just M-Pesa or something, whatever it is, bank account. Yeah. Let me say something just very shortly on that same thing of patterns. I don't know if you remember, in the past, banks used to give out like piggy banks for their children's accounts. Yeah. And what we've seen over time is that those who went through that system, their parents gave them a piggy bank, and they started saving using that and going for the bank events and everything. They have started doing that for their children as well. There's a power to patterns, and we need to get ourselves into that kind of rhythm. Now, in response to what you're saying, again, if we don't have control ourselves, our children watch, because that's exactly what we do. We go out. We had plans for the money that we had. It gets finished, and then what do? You remove your mobile phone, and you either use what's in your bank account, God willing, or you start using the various credit facilities that are there. Sure. The mobile money, the mobile companies are doing it now. The banks are doing it now, that you can be able to withdraw more than what you had. So we tend to live our lives on credit. And guess what? Your children are learning that you live your life on credit. And let me say this, because I don't want to get this lost in this discussion. It's not just about the negative side. True. I want parents and everybody who's watching to begin to think about it like this. Can you encourage your children, and rather than say, no, we don't have money for this, can there be a good response and say, how can we get money for this? That's a more positive response, because what tends to happen is children then they get the same negative outlook, which is there's never any money, we can't afford anything. No. How can we afford it is a wonderful question to ask. How can we work it out? Right. Can we begin to build and put aside some cash? Whatever it is, that toy that they've been asking for, that game that they've been looking for, put together a plan and say, hey, look, I can't afford to buy you this toy now, but can we work and save some cash so that in the next 3 months, 6 months, we buy it, and every month you put it together and you're getting closer and closer to what you're going to do? That again is teaching your children the right patterns towards the wealth creation journey you want. I think that's very important, because I actually wanted to ask you how to talk to children about hard times, right? Yeah. So you're saying don't just pose it negatively, but figure out a way to almost involve them with the process. Correct. Right? So I like that, because it's even saying, when things are thick, like you can actually try and explain that to your children. Also, I think just so that you're removing entitlement, right? That's right. Yeah. I mean, in our nation, that's one of the biggest issues we're having right now. Yeah. There's a sense of hopelessness with many people where it's like there are no jobs, there are no opportunities. And the truth of the matter is that's not it. Every day, you go onto any of the job websites, go into any of the newspapers, there are jobs. The thing is, people are not qualified for those jobs. It doesn't mean that there are no jobs. There are opportunities. It's just that we've not opened our eyes to opportunities. In our classes at Centonomy, we have this exercise that we do. I'd like to try it here, where we tell people, when you've thought about, let's say, purchasing something, let's say a car, you saw a car that you really like and now you're beginning to think, I want to buy that car. What tends to happen on the streets of Nairobi when you've thought about that car? What happens? You tell me, Joyce, what has your experience been?
You see it everywhere.
There you go. Those cars didn't just suddenly land on the road. It's that your mind was not trained towards them.
Yeah.
And when your mind is not trained towards opportunities that are there, opportunities could be right in front of you, but you're not ready to take them.
Wow.
So we have to teach our children to open their eyes to the opportunities around them, because there's always one there.
Wow. Yeah. Guys, we're going to pause it right there, but we're going to come back with Waithaka. If you're just joining us, we've been talking about teaching our children about money. Be sure to send in your comments and your feedback. The SMS line is 22999. We'll be back right after this short break, and I want to hear about giving children allowances. We're going to get Waithaka's thoughts on that in just a bit. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the show, guys. This is Full Circle with Joyce, with me, Joyce Amondi Wahiga. And on the show today, I have Waithaka Gatumia, who's the CEO of Centonomy. And we've been talking about children and money and what sort of habits and patterns they are picking up from their parents. We'd love to hear from you guys. Do tune in and give us your feedback. The SMS line is 22999. I'd be happy to read out your comments. Maybe you have a question for Gatumia. Well, he's right here in studio for the next few, so be sure to take advantage of that and send us your comments. As we continue with the discussion, though, tenderpreneurship has become, it's like the new career. It's like, you know, when you were growing up, you'd say, I want to be a lawyer, I want to be a doctor. Yep. Now you want to be a tenderpreneur, because that's how you get ahead. Or at least that's what people believe now.
That's what we think.
That's what they think. That's what they're seeing, I guess. But unfortunately, not all of it has been legitimate. But really, I want you to talk to us about lifestyle and how what we're viewing is really influencing our lifestyles and our mentality towards money and wealth creation.
Well, it is interesting. Let's group a couple of things together there. I think the myth of fast money is probably the real issue that we need to deal with. The idea that you can do something and immediately become wealthy. Like you have one hit song, because that's what many music artists think about. Let me just do one song and everybody will know me or know about me, and that'll be it. It's to get that tender. And we think that it's once you get one, then you're sorted for the rest of your life. Yeah. It's the idea around gambling, which has become a real issue in our nation. Yeah. And guess where this is happening? You know, we talk about young people being the people gambling. It's not. We were talking to some teenagers, because we at Centonomy we train teens and we train campus students. So we were in a group of campus students and we were asking them, how is it about gambling? And we thought we were talking to them. But as they gave us the feedback, these campus students started telling us, hey, look, some of them citing my dad at home. Yeah. My dad at home in his 40s, he has pages and pages of notes on soccer matches that are coming up.
You've never seen all those winners on TV are like babas.
That's what I'm saying. It's not a problem for the youth. Yeah. This is a real issue for our country. Yeah. But you see, where are the young people learning it from? They come home and their dad has got a list of things that they're doing, or their parents or their mom is involved in some tender plan that is going on, and she's really going after it because she believes that if I get this tender, that it's going to be solve all our problems. Yeah. There's the myth of quick money. But one of the mistakes that we make is that for those who have found real success, it didn't happen overnight. I get this question every single time when I'm training teenagers and campus students, but Zuckerberg of Facebook dropped out of university, but Mr. Bill Gates, who has been wealthiest in the world, also dropped out of university. And my quick response to everybody who says that is, which university did they drop out of?
Right.
Just first of all, let's agree on that one.
These are Ivy League schools.
This is first of all that they dropped out of that school. But secondly, they had been involved in coding and in computers for many years before they got to college.
Yeah.
So that by the time they were in university, they were essentially the experts in their field. The college was just going to help them with a degree. They didn't need to go there. It's similar to when we talk about some of these music artists who are out there in this world who started off really young, and by the time they're in their teenage years, people know about them. They've got hit songs that are out there. But it took years to get to that position, to build the skill to be able to do what you wanted to do.
Right.
But what people see is that moment of success. But if you look at it, Zuckerberg didn't become a multi-billionaire just like that.
The dome, just like
he had done so many different websites by the time he got to Facebook, and even Facebook took a couple of years to get to the level of success that we found. It's just that he started earlier than everybody else.
Yeah.
So maybe that's the lesson parents need to begin to say, is start training your children in their areas of gifting as early as possible so that they can become successful as early as possible. But the process is still the same. So when you're seeing all those pictures of somebody #blessed in front of their car that they've just bought, you don't know the story that got them to that point.
Absolutely.
You don't know how many years it took them to get to that point.
Yeah.
And the myth is this. Even that tender, you talk to anybody who's ever gotten a government tender, it does not mean success, because payments are often not on time, maybe not in full. There may be some, there's taxes involved, there's regulations that are involved. So it's a whole process. And most of the people who have actually, it's on their second and third try that they're beginning to see that success coming through.
Right.
So we need to start showing our children the process. In fact, that's one of our next projects, is to look at all these people who look like overnight successes. There is no such thing.
Right.
Because we need to see when did that musician start writing songs? When did they start playing the guitar? I know he's infamous for many things, but a guy like Justin Bieber, he's on air and many people around the world love him. But did we see where he began? He started playing that music at home as a small child.
Yeah.
And gained the skill in order to perform in front of millions around the world.
Right.
That's why we pay him. People pay that money to go and see him.
Yeah.
It didn't just happen. There are other things in his life for sure. And with many musicians, there's so much drama right now, I don't even know who to quote. But as far as their musical skill is concerned, they were excellent at what they do. So I get deeply concerned. I don't know if you've experienced this when you're driving in Nairobi City and someone will come and knock on your window and say, "Siuni promote," and they have a CD in front of you. And I'm like, I don't know who you are.
Yeah.
I don't know what your music is. Why should I pay you? Why am I promoting you?
Yeah.
Those who have found that success, all these artists that we're watching on telly, they went through the process. They went and performed in small places. I was looking at some of the history of like Sauti Sol, and they would perform in these small youth group meetings around Nairobi, and they developed their skill there, and then they performed in a few smaller gigs, and then they got a chance to perform in a big concert that was going on, and people began to notice them. They didn't just become Sauti Sol the way we see them like that.
Okay.
And they're serious about their business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think related to process is because it's that analogy of when you look at an iceberg, you just see the tip of
That's
it,
right.
but you don't understand how massive, like the weight of what is behind it that is actually holding it
That's
up.
right.
But related to that is, I think there's a level of us needing to teach our kids that the end does not justify the means in any sphere, including financially.
Yes.
Because, you know, there are parents who, by the patterns and what they're making their kids aware of, their kids are seeing that however you get money, bora tu you party.
Yeah.
And that's such a terrible way to live, because then you're creating terrible members of society, really.
It is. And the truth of the matter is, how do we do it? at Centonomy, our mission is this at Centonomy. We say we're on a mission to shift mindsets so that purposeful people can create wealth and live abundantly. Because we realize it's not just about money, it's about the abundant life that you want to have. Because there are those who have created money, but they can't sleep because they know somebody's after them.
Right.
One of the biggest issues with corruption in our nation is that once you have been corrupted, it's hard to get out of the cycle. Because if I stole some money and I shared it with you, you know I stole it. And so every month you'll come back and you will hold it over me and say, hey, but you stole, and you better tell people, you better give me something from what you stole, or I'll get, or I'll let everyone know that you are a thief. And you just get into that cycle and into that cycle, and it's hard to break free.
Yeah.
So look, there are those, and please, Kenyans, do not be dismayed. There are those in this country who have actually created wealth honestly.
Yes.
And they have gone through the process.
Yeah.
It is possible to do so. Can we begin to teach our children the honest way? Believe me, your children are watching you when you're caught over speeding in traffic.
Yeah.
And you have a conversation with the policeman, and you remove a note and just say, here is something for the troubles that we have. They're learning something as they watch.
Absolutely.
So, look, it is possible. I believe that it is, and we have seen it over and over again in this country, that people can create wealth honestly.
Absolutely. Wow. Gatumia, we have to let you go now, unfortunately. But thank you so much for being here today and for sharing your insights. Clearly, this is a huge topic, one that we've not paid enough attention to in the past.
I mean, it's so serious. We're having a whole session this Saturday in town at Luther Plaza. It's free from 10 to 1 p.m. for about teens and money.
Okay.
So you're welcome to come because we believe that we need to get this message out as much as possible.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Be sure to check them out this Saturday then at Luther Plaza. Thank you once again to you and Centonomy. Guys, we're going to take a short break, but when we come back, do you know basic first aid tips to be able to take care of an emergency at home or somewhere around you? This and much more when we come back right here on Full Circle with Joyce. All right, guys, welcome back to the show. This is Full Circle with Joyce, and right now we want to switch gears a bit and talk about safety rules and first aid at home. And joining me on the show, I have Henry Akunda, who's an emergency medical technician. Karibu sana to the show, Henry.
Thank you.
Good to see you here.
Thank you.
So, safety at home, there's some basics that all of us really should know. Protecting our children or infants, even adults,
yes.
Just being able to know, what to do in case of an emergency. So first things first, we should be having first aid kits at home, right?
Yes, we should be having first aid kits at home so that you can be able to assist anyone who has got some cuts or injury or even illnesses, which is the first immediate thing that we're supposed to do before thinking out now to taking your casualty to hospital. Because they are key things that you must be doing. For instance, if someone is bleeding, you cannot rush them when they are bleeding to hospital without even thinking of controlling that bleed. So part of our first aid kits help us to do so.
Okay.
Yes.
So let's talk about, at the very minimum, what should you have in a first aid kit?
In first aid kit, you can have this universal or small or at home or a car first aid kit, which is very essential. It has some basic key things that you can be able to do to have. It has some bandages, which will be able to help you control bleeds. It has some gauzes or eye pads, which will be able to help in case anyone has got injuries to the eyes, and the list also aspect to do with some elastoplast for small cuts and grazes. They can be able to assist you, and some water for injection, or maybe water just to to irrigate is just a sterile water. But anyway, this one you can be able to use if even tap water to make sure you wash and disinfect cuts and wounds. Here a thermometer, which is key thing when you're dealing with
Especially
an infant.
infants.
Yes, because you really need to measure their temperature every now and then so that you can be able to detect any fever, which means there's some infection that is maybe about to get to an infant. And then yeah, we have some trauma shear to cut some bandages or also some clothes, exposure in case of any burns that one can be able to use, and then gloves are very essential at some point, protecting from any cross infection. You may need also gloves to make sure you protect yourself. And
maybe one more.
Yeah, one more is all about some wound dressings or bandages that can be able to assist to tie any cuts, any bleeds that are essential. So these are some of the basic things that one may be able to require in a minimum event of an emergency.
Okay, so be sure, guys, that you have at least a first aid kit in your house with some of the essentials here that Henry has told us about. Now, let's talk about handling certain emergencies at home. Okay, you have a dummy toddler here.
Yeah, this is a dummy toddler.
Let's talk about choking, because that's a huge concern for a lot of parents. Either they've swallowed a bead, or it could be with food.
Yeah, with food.
Maybe they've put something in there. This looks like plastic.
Yes.
And you see a lot of plastic bags. When things come, they'll say, you know, this is a safety hazard for children.
Yeah, for children.
They could put it over their heads and suffocate. Tell us, you know, what to do in case of an emergency like
in
this
choking.
one. Yeah,
so
in choking.
this one, when an infant chokes, remember they'll be unable to cry, which is a key sign. And as a caregiver, you just need to come. Once you observe they are choking, you need to check on their mouth. If you can be able to see the object and pick it with your 2 hands, the better. Avoid blind finger sweep. The more you're having a blind finger sweep, the more there's chances of pushing it more deeper. And then once you notice that, you need to hold the baby head like this way, turn them, and then support them with your lap, because they might be a bit heavy. Let the gravity help you. They're supposed to be slanted forward, and then between the shoulder blades, you administer up to 5 back blows. 5 back blows. Make sure you do it more firmly. Up to 5. Make sure you do it more firmly. And I know there's aspect of sympathy. Am I going to injure the baby? That one should not be part of you. You should actually have some empathy, because your aim is to remove the object. So after 5 back blows, you need to turn the baby, try to check the mouth. If you can be able to see the object, kindly remove it.
And you said you remove with not
your
just
2
one,
hands,
two
no, just
fingers.
1 hand. In 1 hand, you're going to actually do a blind finger sweep. All right, and then you hold your baby again. If the object does not come out at the center of the chest, you do chest thrust, and then you perform up to 5 chest thrusts. So 1, 2, 3, 4,
So a
5.
chest thrust, you're using the tips
2
of
fingers.
your 2 fingers.
Tips of your 2 fingers, trying to thrust the chest forward. Here we are trying to
dislodge it.
push the chest, so that the air that is inside the chest can be able to push the object out. So that's what you do. So 5 chest thrust. After 5 chest thrust, you check at the mouth. If you can see the object, can remove. If still you cannot see the object, you're going to alternate again.
So you just go back.
So you alternate again. You give up to 5 back blows. Once they reach 5, then you turn, check the mouth. If you can see the object, remove. If you can see the object, you continue. You are allowed to do this at least 3 cycles. If the object is not coming out, you really need now to call for an emergency help, or you arrange removal to hospital. And once you're arranging removal to hospital, you need also to be continuously doing that. Yes.
Let's move on now to say the toddler isn't breathing.
Yes.
They've not choked or anything. Maybe they were asleep, but then you realize that the baby isn't breathing.
Okay, good question. Thank you for that. So when you notice the baby is not breathing, normally they'll start to turn color, to turn blue, which means they're not getting sufficient oxygen in their system. So when you notice they are not breathing, key thing, you should activate emergency help immediately if you have your phone there. Because all the same, they must reach to hospital. So once you activate emergency help, you need to put them on a firm surface.
Okay.
Do not put them on a couch, because when you compress on a couch or a mattress, the mattress will go in and then you're not going to do it effective.
Okay.
We're going to do a procedure known as cardiopulmonary resuscitation.
So you'd actually rather they're on the floor,
placing
not
them
even
on the floor
Okay.
or on a firm surface, a table, which
table.
is very firm. So once you place them on the floor, you need to check their response, which is key thing. Yeah, and the baby's response, you normally tap on the sole of the foot to see if the baby is actually going to flicker or do some movement. Once they're not doing that, you need to actually try to do what? Open the airway from the baby. How to do it here? So opening the airway, make sure to put one finger here and 2 fingers. Just put the baby's head in a neutral position.
Okay, one finger is under the chin?
Yeah, yes, under the chin at the jaw region, and then 2 fingers here. Just place the baby's head in a neutral position.
Okay.
Then after that, you need to check if your baby is breathing, which is key thing. So check if they are breathing. Look,
You're
listen and
hearing
feel.
for the sounds
Yeah, if
and
there
the
any
breath.
sounds and the breath sounds. So
Okay.
once you notice the baby is not breathing, you're being told administer 5 initial rescue breaths.
Okay.
The 5 first. So your mouth is big, you're going to cover the mouth and the nose of the baby and administer up to 5 breaths until you see the chest rise.
Okay.
That is key thing. So 5 rescue breaths.
Oh wow, it's actually it's actually
5.
Yeah.
So after 5 rescue breath, then you really need to come at the center of the chest, which is between the nipple line. Then 1 finger down the nipple line. That's where you get the center of the chest, holding the baby's head slightly, at least to keep it in a neutral position. And with 2 fingers, you're going to compress 30 chest compressions. 1 and 2, 4 and 5.
and these are
6,
firm, like
7,
you're doing
8.
it with
Yes.
pressure.
11,
When you were doing the rescue breath,
Yes.
what you said you cover the baby's nose as well. Were you pinching the nose with your fingers?
No, no, no.
Or?
For the baby, your mouth is big and the baby's
will cover it
mouth and nose
Okay.
is small. So the distance is small. So
Okay.
it will cover it all. So
Okay.
you give 5 rescue breaths, then you give up to 30 chest compression. Push hard, push fast, and allow the chest to recoil. So you're pushing down firmly and hard and allowing the chest to recoil. Doing
Okay.
that, you're doing the work of the heart. Because
Okay.
the work of the heart is to push blood to the vital
Right.
organs. So once you give up to 30 chest compression, you can now come and give up to 2 ventilation. Remember the 5 initials one were the baby went to a respiratory arrest or the cardiac arrest because of insufficient supply of oxygen to the body tissues. So you start cardiopulmonary resuscitation by giving 5 initial rescue breaths, then you compress 30
Compressions,
times
30.
at the center of the chest, then you give 2 rescue breaths.
Okay.
So you're going to, the sequence will be 30 chest compressions to 2 rescue breaths.
Okay.
Yes. So
And
that's
at this
how you
point,
continue.
the ambulance or
Yes.
some way to get to the hospital
Yes.
should have already been arranged.
Yes, you are already called that. If you have your phone immediately there, call immediately.
Okay.
So that's the essence.
All right. So that's for toddlers. Guys, I hope you guys are taking notes or something. A lot to learn here today. I certainly, my mind is blown. But Henry, as we move on, now adults,
Yeah, adults.
all sorts of things can happen.
Yes.
I know we have a dummy adult here, but before we get to that one, let's talk about other things, nosebleeds,
Nosebleeds too.
burns and cuts very quickly.
Yeah, easy thing. I'll start with the nosebleeds. In terms of nosebleeds, is usually a rupture of the capillary vessels, that is on the nose, tiny capillary nostrils, due to, number 1, can either be high blood pressure, number 2, blow around the face, and number 3, changes in different temperature.
Okay.
And lastly, so about blowing your nose out, or someone trying to picking something on the nose,
Yeah, yeah.
which can prick the small capillaries. So the initial treatment is usually let the casualty sit down very firmly, then lean forward and pinch the soft part of the nose.
Okay.
Apply pressure, firm pressure, so as to allow clotting to take place. So
Okay.
pinching up to 10 minutes.
Wow. Okay.
So it's usually leaning forward. So pinch up to 10 minutes. And then after 10 minutes, you tend to release. If there still bleeds, you pinch again for another 10 minutes, and then you release. If they still bleed, you pinch for a 3rd time. That is 10 minutes. That is 3 cycles of 10 minutes. That is 30 minutes. So once bleeding has not stopped, then that means that is more than just minor nosebleeds that needs to be taken to hospital.
Okay.
But once someone is pinching the nose, advise them to breathe through their mouth.
Okay.
To avoid talking.
Yeah.
And do not actually swallow the blood. They need to spit it out.
Right.
Because if they talk, and it will disrupt the clot formations.
Okay.
And there's some do not, when it comes to nosebleed, do not let someone tip back. The head to be tipped back.
Oh, and people do that a lot. They think that because your nose is
Exactly.
bleeding, you should.
Yeah, you should
shouldn't do
not
that.
tip back, because the blood will run down the airway, which will induce vomiting.
Okay.
So that's a do not.
Okay.
But majority
Tip
of
forward.
people usually tip back. Make sure you do not lean back, but make sure you lean forward.
All right, got
Yes.
it. So now let's say burns and cuts.
Yeah, burns and cuts. In terms of cuts to the babies, maybe they come with some grazes. Key thing, small bleeds, you need to, number one is your aim is to minimize risk of infection. That's why you need to wash, clean, disinfect.
Okay.
So once you wash, clean, disinfect small cuts, you can as well take a elastoplast and come and apply some elastoplast to the small wounds
Yeah.
and cuts.
Okay.
Yes. If it's a major wound, your aim is not to disinfect. Your aim is to stop the bleeding. So
Right.
you bandage it immediately.
Okay.
Yes, you need to bandage it immediately, because you normally say eventually all bleeds will stop by themselves.
Right.
And when they stop by themselves, the casualty not be there.
Yeah,
So you
yeah.
bandage. That's your aim.
Yeah.
To bandage to stop the bleeds. That's
Okay.
very essential. When it comes to burns,
Yeah, people cooking, maybe milk,
cooking,
oil,
something here and there.
happens.
Yes, key thing is usually number one, to cool the burn area. That is key thing, because there is heat, there is some sort of temperatures around your skin, and our skin is very sensitive. They don't need more temperature or very cold temperatures. They just need average temperature. So when someone burns, it disrupts the skin structure. So key thing, you cool the burn with cold water and
Okay.
running water. That is actually for 10 minutes.
Okay.
If it's a normal burn. If it's a chemical burn, you're gonna cool it for 20 minutes. So
Still under running water.
Yeah, running water, 10 minutes. Cold water does what? It's actually eases pain and
Okay.
reduces swelling.
Okay.
And soothes the area. The casualty feels more easy in that.
Okay.
And after that, you need to remove all the bracelets, what do you call it? Any constrictions.
Okay.
Such as bracelets, watch, that can be able to, so that to avoid when swelling starts, they
Right,
cannot
it-
cut circulation.
Ooh, okay.
So that's key thing. So after that, you can as well put a burn cream, or if it's a very large wound, you can bandage it with a clean film. You want a clean film first, because if you bandage it with such bandages, it can do what? It can stick on the burn,
Ooh.
and it's not advised there.
I'm already seeing this
Yes,
graphically.
so-
if someone doesn't have burn cream, what can they use? Vaseline?
No. We are being exactly. So you're being told do not.
Toothpaste.
Yes, those are do nots. Do not apply any ointment, creams which are not prescribed by the doctor.
Ata petroleum jelly.
Add a petroleum jelly.
Okay.
Petroleum jelly will create more heat
Oh,
to the wound.
okay.
Yes.
Unajua kuna watu wanapaka unga.
It's not
Na
advised.
toothpaste.
Yeah, unga inafaa mtu anakula. Like you see.
Hapo sawa. Guy, our time is running out, but I might have to cut the song a bit. But let me, because you have an adult dummy here, and I think it's very important to go through this. Collapsing, or
Yes.
if someone suffers a stroke in the house, we can't demonstrate fainting, unfortunately, unless one of my cameramen will join me. But let's talk about collapsing, for example.
Yeah, but I can just simply talk about fainting
Okay.
in just 2 minutes. In terms of fainting, when someone faints, you need to actually loosen any constriction, raise and elevate their legs. That is key thing. Make sure airway, breathing and circulation, they're okay. They're in a very aerated area, then raise and support their legs. Fainting usually due to insufficient supply of blood, which has oxygen to the
Right.
brain.
Okay.
So when you elevate their legs, it does what? It simply improves blood circulation, which is to the legs, back to the brain.
How do you know if someone has fainted? And what's the difference, fainting and collapsing?
Fainting and collapsing. There are causes.
Okay.
Causes of fainting: number one, hunger; number two, sudden news; number three, exhaustion; standing for long duration of time; and then early stages of pregnancy
Okay.
may make someone to collapse.
Okay.
The reasons why, maybe when you're in school, you had someone say you can collapse so that you can be given food.
Those are naughty people.
Because hungry. Yeah,
All right.
Hunger is key thing. So when it comes to an adult who has collapsed, you need to check also, are they breathing? Key thing when someone collapses, you need to check life-saving priorities. That is airway, breathing and circulation. You should not term someone dead and yet you're not a qualified doctor to
Right.
term someone who is dead. So if this person had collapsed, key thing here, when you come, when you make sure you're safe, you need to tap and check response. Hello, can you hear me? If you know the name, you can
Tap
be able
here
to
at the
call. Yeah,
shoulders.
tap at the shoulders. Hello, can you hear me? Let the public avoid flicking someone's neck
Yeah, oh gosh.
on side. So hello, can you hear me? If they're still not responding, you need to, if you're alone, you better shout for help so that when help comes, you can be able to send them, call an ambulance or something. And then hold 4 fingers at the forehead, 2 fingers at the chin. Then you need to open the airway. So when you open the airway like that, remember when someone's lying flat, the tongue usually falls back and blocks the airway. So key thing, you need to tilt the head back so that you can be able to do what? Yeah, lift up the tongue to allow the airway. Then you need to listen for breathing also, breath sounds. You feel the warmth and you observe the rise and falling of the chest for 10 seconds.
Okay.
Yeah, you need to check for the for 10 seconds. Once you notice they are not breathing, if you have your phone, make an emergency phone call and say the casualty is not breathing to the immediate emergency service provider. And then you can come to the center of the chest. Yes, place just between the tip of the breastbone and the way part of the up chest, but just at the center of the chest, place one heel there, and then you place the hand on this end. Make sure you're straight, and then you're going to compress up to 30 compressions. This is cardiopulmonary resuscitation. So you compress, make sure you push fast and push hard till 30 chest compression. So once you're done with 30 chest compression, you need to come to the airway, open the airway again, and then you give blow. Now this time you're going to pinch
the nose.
The nose of an infant, and make sure you can be able to have a protective with you, so that you can be able to avoid any cross infection. Right? Then you blow in.
So what would you use as the protective?
As the protector, you're going to use a CPR mask. Yes, we have a
important
CPR.
to have that in your first aid kit.
Yes, a CPR mask should be a part of you that you can be able to use to make sure.
You can just show it. Do you have one? You can show us what it looks like.
You have one over here.
Okay. And then after that, we'll have to wrap up the show for the day. Oh, we may not have one right now.
Yeah, it's supposed to be here. Yes. You need to have a CPR mask for you, so that you can be able to, it looks like this. So you protect your mouth and the casualty to make sure, yes,
there's no infection. Yes,
there is no any infections. So this is a side that you place on your mouth, and you stick it to the casualty's ear like that, and then you can be able to give any breath.
So do you need to tuboy it, or it's already tuboed?
Sorry?
Do you need
no, it's already manufactured
it already
like
has
that.
Something.
Yes,
Perfect.
so it has something like that.
Wow.
So you give up to 2 rescue breaths. So you give 2 rescue breaths, and then you give 30 chest compression. Once you notice they are not breathing.
Sijui tutafanya class ya full circle first aid.
Yes, first aid is essential. First aid is key. Each and every household. So St. John, we normally advocate for each and every household to still have some first aid session whereby they can reach us to St. John every week. Normally have some training.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Our time is so far gone. I really appreciate you coming. We'll call you again. I hope so. And so thank you guys so much for watching. What a show. If you've missed it, catch the repeat at 3 o'clock. But for now, this is it. I'll see you tomorrow for Style and Culture Friday. Until then, have a blessed day. Ciao.